Welcome back to Ranchworthy, where we spotlight the stewards of the land and legacy builders in agriculture. In this episode, we visit the Vance family, a first-generation operation raising Red Angus and crossbred cattle alongside with a thriving wildlife program. With 3 young boys in tow, Michael and his wife are proving that you don't need generations behind you to create a sustainable future. From 0 herbicides or pesticides to cutting-edge technology, they're redefining what it means to ranch with a purpose.
Should put some makeup on. Shiny face.
Just didn't get up early.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
My name is Michael Vance. Our operation is Southern Res. We're located here in East Texas on the Trinity River bottom, south of Palestine. This is my son Brooks. We run mostly Red Angus cattle, raise commercial cattle and seed stock. Run Red Angus base with some composite cattle with ear, with a little Gert and Beefmaster influence as well. Cows are going the wrong way. We have certain multiple gates, and so they get confused. They're like, what gate are we going to? And
yeah.
Come on, girls. We really just need one old cow to get with the program. So
a leader.
Yes, we have solid Red Angus cows, which are like these cows.
I was going to ask what your breeding program looks like.
So they're registered. Most of these Red Angus cows are registered. Okay. And then our commercial cows, we have some commercial Red Angus. Like if you see some bad odor cows or junk cows, they're just commercial cows. But the Red Angus cows kind of stand out. The better cows, they kind of stand out. And then we've got a bunch of commercial eared cattle because we just keep them with the group, and they cross really good with the ear in this part of the world. Because we just turn our Red Angus bulls back on them. We raise bulls. We sell about 100 bulls a year. So what we'll do is we'll graze this hard. Twice, and then starting mid-July, we'll start mowing behind the cows. So we'll come here and graze it, and then we'll mow it down to a certain level and knock a lot of the seed heads down. And not something you would do out west, but here we get so much unpalatable forage. It doesn't stockpile. So to me, it's a lot harder to manage here because we can't stockpile grass. So you can't exactly plan for drought as well. So when we have drought here, a lot of people, they kind of make fun of drought in this country. They're like, oh, you don't know drought, but you can't manage and stockpile forage here. So you can to some extent, but not like you can further west. And so it actually makes it really hard because the stockpile feed you have is very poor quality and it's almost unpalatable. So it does make it hard. And whenever you do go into drought, you want to have as palatable a forage as you can. And like this Bahia grass, it loses palatability really quick. It's very poor. It's probably the poorest forage we have. And like right now with the seed head on it, it's not very high in protein and it's green. So it can't even, to me, it won't even maintain a wet cow. So it makes it really hard. Like when your summer grass won't maintain a wet cow, that really makes you
hard to push through.
Yeah, you gotta alter your management. Like we're introducing a lot of new species of grass here, trying to get more natives back in. But then that's also the reason we follow Gav. Our cool season grasses are our best gainers, and so we just kind of got through that time of year with our ryegrass and oats and things like that. Clovers. This place grows a lot of clovers and veg.
So what varieties are you trying to bring back in?
So we're bringing a lot of native species back in.
Anything particular you're focusing on, or just
no? We're putting a combination. We just planted 400 acres in an 11 seed mix, and then part of what we do too is longer rest periods. Like Bahia grass wants to get hit more often, and so we're giving it longer rest periods, which is a two-edged sword because like the longer our rest is pasture, the less palatable the Bahia grass is. So we're when you grow, that's why the cows haven't really eaten it that much. They've eaten a little bit, but you got to make them stay in here and camp on that. But what happens is you start allowing some of your low successional native plants to come back in because your native plants need rest, and so that's what we're trying to do. And it's a fine line because you want to utilize the grass that we have, but you also want to allow for new species to come in, and so and not spraying has really helped with that. Seems like it helps the soil biology increase, and it, a lot of our herbicides now, they're actually hard on certain native species, and so.
So y'all didn't do any spraying of any kind?
No, we did some this year on a project with NRC. Well, actually, it wasn't on the NRCS project, but we were trying to establish some natives, and so we have done some spraying in some of the bottoms just for for a weed suppression. We've got some toxic weeds down in our river bottom, and we can't get to them with a mower or anything like that. So we've done a little bit there, but that's the first time we've actually put spray on this ranch in the 3 years that we've had it. So, but like it'll look really good. Like when we come in here and mow it in July, it'll look awesome. So this is a good example of one we don't mow right here, or we don't spray. This is American basket flower, and you can't see it yet, but it creates a little sunflower seeds. When it dries down, it's like the #1 quail food in Texas. But most people think it's a thistle and they spray for it. And where we're concerned about wildlife, it's like the #1 bird food. You know, it's awesome feed. So when it dries down, if I could find one that was dried down, I could show you the seeds, but they hadn't grown seeds yet. They're just now starting to pop out. And then, like you see the honeybees, like there's a honeybee right there in one. And so you take it and you'll open it up like this. When it gets dry, you'll be able to open it up and they'll be like black sunflower seeds. See them white seeds right there? They'll turn black and they look like little mini sunflower seeds, but it's called American basket flower. And like it's getting wiped out because of people spraying too much, in my opinion. Keep an eye on Brooks. Right there he is. And see, there's no cattle back here at all. And then what we'll do is we'll swoop down there and help them gather them cattle and get some pressure behind them. What's really neat is this allows me to be able to watch these cattle coming in the gate, so I get an eye on all the cattle. Because when you're at the back, you miss a lot of the cattle coming through. But I'm gonna fly over and make sure he didn't miss anything, and then we'll swoop in and help him.
And they'll run from the drone, right?
They will. I had to kind of get after them, but man, I can't believe that. We got really fortunate there. Like they're in like a quarter of an area of this pasture, all of them, and normally they're not like that. Normally they're really spread out. They were probably ready to go. So they would have been all the way up here, and this is, and like I'm not running wheels right now, like my wheels are parked, and so this thing doesn't cost anything to operate, knock on wood. Yeah, the amount of liability you have running this, I mean, you can get a cheap insurance policy on one of these, you know. That's what I was worried about when I first got them. Yeah, so we're gonna so there's Brooks. See, he's off his four-wheeler. I'll jump in there and help him. We're gonna get after these cattle now. I'll help him. So we're just gonna mainly just get these cattle to going. So really you just want to get them going because they know they need to be moving, but you're just trying to put a little bit of pressure on them. Come on, girl. There's a speaker you can attach to these with pre-recorded stuff, and so we're actually going to get that to where we can talk to them. Let's say, hey girl, come on. You know, like our normal voice. Woo! We'll see how far I can. That's where it's really helpful. See how far down it'll let me go. Yeah, I have to get right up in their face sometimes. And they're used to it. We've been using one of these for 4 or 5 months on them now. Probably the most unique thing about us is we started from nothing. We didn't inherit any cattle or any money or anything, or our land, and I think that's what's really hard for a lot of people getting started. For us, we've been very blessed with some really good partnerships over the years, and that have helped us, grow or be able to have capital to run more cattle or lease bigger ranches. And then we've been blessed with really good opportunities to lease properties, nice properties. And so I think for anybody that's wanting to get into the cattle industry, there's a possibility for anybody to grow and be able to do this for a living. And it's not as hard as a lot of people think. I think because if we can do it, and like I said, we started with I remember my first potload of cattle I bought with a stock trailer. I had a deed on a stock trailer. But a key for us is having good landowner partners. We really try to manage places for the landowner's goals. And so we only run cattle where we feel like we're a good fit with the landowner and what they want to do and the things that are important to them. And then we don't want the cattle to ever get in the way of that, or our cattle business to ever get in the way of that. And like here, we're partnering with a group that really understands conservation, and that's a priority for them. That is the number one reason they bought the property. And so we can actually increase the wildlife habitat while using cattle, which is not the universal thought out there, especially outside the industry. And that's the reason you don't see us spraying. We don't do a lot of the typical things. We plant a lot of cover crops, we plant about 2,000 acres of winter feed here, and that's virtually 2,000 acres of food plots is what it is. So we're able to do a lot of good things for the landowner, add value for them. And at any point we don't add value for them, we probably don't need to be here anymore. And so we kind of look for that. And you can see now, like coming in here, the cattle hadn't eaten the grass yet. You see how thick the grass is. And so once they eat the grass, it looks weedier, but then you come in here and mow and it looks just like pretty grass again, And the whole time we're keeping these broadleafs out there for the wild, because all the broadleafs are for the wildlife. Most of them don't eat grasses. Most of the wildlife don't consume grasses. They just use it for nesting habitat.
Was the wildlife aspect coming from you, from the land ownership? Where did the drive to both sides?
Yeah, both sides. So we're big conservationists and hunters, and we enjoy it. That's one reason we lease this particular property. It's not the greatest cattle property, but it's, as far as multi-use, it's one of the better multi-use properties we've ever seen, and the best one we've definitely been able to lease. And so there's value there. We actually we could possibly outfit, but instead of doing that, since we don't have to, and that's the goal, is we don't really ever want to have to outfit to make profit. What we do is we share the hunting with people that are partners in our business, as far as like strategic people, people that help us on our grass, in our CS staff. We try to bring in people that help us throughout the year on different things. We want to give them skin in the game, so they get to come hunt with us, spend time with us. But we also use it for friendships and relationships outside of our industry. People that maybe don't ever get to spend time in a grazing operation or in a cattle operation. If they come down here for the hunting and they see that the grazing is good for the hunting, then all of a sudden it helps put that story together, and they realize we're actually very beneficial for the environment. We're a key to sustaining wildlife habitat as grazers. And so we even have a few really good friendships within the USDA and through NRCS, and we're able to I think have an effect at a very high level, even with policy, because we have relationships with people that get to come see the boots on the ground and spend a week with us here hunting and moving cattle. That they might bring their kids down and help us move cattle and things like that. We invite people from even within the community that maybe a lot of them don't have cattle, don't understand cattle, and they come out here to maybe shoot pigs or deer hunt or something with us. And while they're out here, they get to see, man, you planted all this feed for cattle, and look what the deer are doing. So they realize that we're an ecosystem, and we manage it for an ecosystem. I mean, look at the grass we're driving in now, and
I think a lot of people think that in people who are just straight cattle producers or livestock producers, a lot of these game ranches, you see a lot of more high fence and exotic type of ranches popping up. But to your point, it almost is like you have to pick an either or, but you're demonstrating that you can have both and both can thrive.
Yeah, it's ecosystem management, and that is the problem. I think we as ranchers need to do a better job of managing for an ecosystem, not just for grass. This is what I was talking about earlier, silver blue stem. That's a low successional native plant, but you're seeing it starting to come in now, and it's just one of the examples of a lot of the natives that are starting to pop up in here. Using our grazing operations to manage ecosystems, and I think we can do a better job as a whole. I think collectively there are a lot of producers that are becoming more ecosystem minded and ecosystem friendly because the wildlife and the agritourism and the recreational value is so high on these properties that you almost have to. But it's so important for our industry. If we don't keep those dots well connected, we're going to lose a lot of our value as an industry, because one of the major values we have outside of the beef production that we have is managing ecosystems. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of producers that probably don't do a great job of that, but I think that's changing. I think we're seeing more and more producers that are ecosystem friendly, ecosystem minded. They're looking out for the other species that live out here, and got to figure out a way to bridge the gap. Like, not saying not to use herbicides or not to use fertilizers, or not to use wormers, but we're getting more and more producers that are asking the question, okay, if I do use this wormer or I use this herbicide, what is the trade-off? Because there's a trade-off to all of it. And depending on where you're located and what your management goals are, you might choose to use a different set of those things that might be antagonistic to the wildlife ecosystem. And I think more and more people are realizing those are tools at our disposal, but not just to use them in mass use, to realize there are negative trade-offs with those, and to figure out ways to kind of merge those things. I think one thing that's helped is the price of inputs. Herbicide alone has more than doubled over the last 3 years. So a lot of people are looking at herbicide going, it's hard to justify herbicide use. Well, it's actually making running a mower a lot more sensible for, especially like more improved type forages and it's smaller acreages, and where mowing is something that can be used that is wildlife friendly if it's done at the right time, if it's not done during the nesting season. And it knocks down a lot of your weeds after they've been used for forage, and it keeps all your grass palatable. But there's trade-offs with that too, like I said, with the nesting and a lot of like your goat weed here. It makes a seed that a lot of people call it dove weed. Your woolly croton, and it's one example. And so I think more and more people though are starting to pay attention to those things. Like when you have a lot of weeds, or what we call them fours, but a lot of people could consider weeds. Like, why do we have weeds right here? They're probably there to heal something, or they're showing you one of the what's wrong with the soil, and they're starting to read it more. Like right here is where that old airstrip was, and you can see that's why we've got a lot of woolly croton going here, is because it's compressed soil,
right down the middle.
Yeah, and so it shows you. And when we first got here, this was everywhere. But now that we're getting this grass in the right cycle, like this year's the least amount of weeds we've had in this pasture. And a lot of it's because we've given it plenty of rest, but we're starting to see kind of that full gamut, and we still have enough weeds or forbs for the wildlife to use, because we don't want to wipe those out no matter what. We always want a percentage of those for the wildlife to use. Like here, you look at, this is dove food. We have doves that winter here all winter long. My kids, that's all they want to do is shoot doves in December, because the doves just live here. They just stack in on the power lines, and they winter here and roost here. And so that's a key part of the ecosystem here. So what do you want to talk about?
Cows. So we talked a little bit about what you were doing at the very beginning, but talk a little bit about why Red Angus to begin with, and then some of the breeding protocols and programs and what direction you're trying to take your operation.
So probably about 20 years ago, between 15 and 20 years ago, we were really looking for some maternal type cows that would work on forage. It was during one of the economic downturns when the cattle market was really low, and we're trying to figure out a way to cut input costs. And so, the thought being then with us and a lot of other producers, and at that time I was working for a producer full time, we were trying to figure out a way to cut costs on that ranch. Very innovative operator, and we just kept looking around, and we couldn't find the maternal genetics we wanted within the breeds we were currently using. And so we started looking at Red Angus for just maternal, cows that would go out and eat grass and harvest it and turn it into calves without a lot of inputs. And at that time, Red Angus was not a popular breed, and they were a little bit smaller frame cow. Most of the people that raised them had really tight bloodlines, so they were really consistent, really uniform cow, and they would work on forage only without much supplementation. But most of them were further north. There weren't many in Texas, and so. And this time at this point we were in Oklahoma. I was working with a guy named Yates Adcock, and he's still a good friend of ours. And we started looking, for some cattle that worked, and we found some. And one of my thoughts was, how can we get some of these cattle adapted to this environment? And so at that point, I bought some embryos out of some cattle we really liked in another part of the country, and we stuck them in some cows down here and started acclimating some of the genetics to this country. And a lot of the bulls that we liked, they were being fed in feedlots, and those feedlotted bulls just don't hold up really well in this country on wide range, and especially in eastern Oklahoma or in East Texas, it's really hard on them. And so we thought, well, we can raise the same genetics in our grass environment and raise them a little bit slower, not in a feedlot type setting. And we started doing that, and we got some bulls that we liked. We also got some that had too much hair, so we started really acclimating those cattle, keeping back the slickest cattle, the most fertile cattle, and we really had to adapt them to this environment. And at some point during that time, I was able to go out on my own, and then we were able to get some partners and kind of grow, and we went and bought some more cows, some more registered Red Angus cows, and over time, we've just kind of derived from that to where we've been in the Red Angus business for about 15 years now, and we've really acclimated them to the heat and the humidity, and that's something that a lot of the people in the breed are not doing, probably, in our opinion. And we're doing that without that use of outside supplementation if we can get by with it. We're not against using it, but the cattle you currently see here have never had any supplemental feed, and so
that's really impressive.
Yeah, so that it took us a while to get there. We culled through a lot of cattle that weren't fertile in that environment, and it took us a long time to learn how to raise bulls in a grass environment, especially here in East Texas, where the grass isn't quite as stout as, let's say, Central Texas or North or West Texas, and so you kind of have to be patient with cattle and let them adapt. And we're real big believers in adaptability. And so, because we've moved around, we've been able to ranch in different parts of the country, and there's some places that are a lot better than others in terms of grass power, but overall, we believe that cattle have to be adapted to environment. That's why we're not big believers in EPDs or genomics like a lot of the mainstream crowd is, because those things don't correctly take into account the environment. You can take an animal great genomics or EPDs in one area of the country, and you take it to another area of the country, and it's not going to work the same. And so even there's other variables outside of that, but that alone right there has shown us that it's really hard to choose cattle over that. You really got to find cattle that thrive in your environment. And honestly, there's not many producers raising cattle in a truly grass-based, grass-only environment, and so we've kind of taken that on ourselves. That's one reason you see a lot of ear here. We've added a lot of cattle with ear, because there's not a lot of Brahman influenced cattle being raised in a grass type, smaller, more moderate frame grass package. And so we're having a lot of fun with that in our commercial herd, raising straight Red Angus bulls in our registered Red Angus program. But then in our composite program, we're raising some tremendous females by crossing our Red Angus bulls back on some eared cattle, getting cattle that are really adapted to this part of the world, but also creating a female that can go work in a grass-only environment and produce. We're able to raise grass-fed beef off of eared cattle, and that's something that you're not seeing very much. But it's a more moderate cow. It's not a big 1,500-pound Brahman cow. We're trying to do that with 1,000, 1,100-pound, about an eighth-eared cow, and so we're having some fun with different breeds. It's something you see in our herd is you'll see a little bit of flavor in there. There's a couple different colored cattle, and that's because we find some cattle we like, and we'll throw them in our herd and just run them together, because we go, okay, let's run them all together and see who thrives. And so you see some ear, you see a few Murray Gray cows, we got a few black cows, a few beef master cows, and so it's just anytime we find cattle that we think might work, we'll buy them and we'll throw them in our herd and go, okay, we'll give them a chance to kind of adapt to our herd a year or two, and a generation or two, And then, it's kind of interesting because you really start figuring out what works, what doesn't. You see a side-by-side comparison. Like, we really like our straight Red Angus for providing them with commercial producers, but if we were a commercial operator, we would want to take, after seeing what we see here, we would want to have a cow with a little bit of ear and then cross that English bull on her, clean that ear off to where you can have calves that are worth the highest amount possible per pound, and still wean a lot of pounds. That seems like that heterosis and that mix works really well. And so,
and you talked about this area of the country and also being first generation. So what made you want to start getting into this full time? And I mean, this is not exactly a small feat. And then also, so why did you choose that? And then why this location?
So I grew up on a row crop farm in Mississippi, actually, and I hate tractors. So, and we had some horses growing up, and when I was in college, we ranch rodeoed and we team roped and sorted and pinned, and I just got to where I was like, I hated equipment, and so I knew I didn't want to go back and row crop farm. And at that point, my family took a big hit in the 80s with land devaluation, and so we lost a lot of our farm during that time, so I knew there wasn't enough land to go back to or anything. So I had a chance to move to Oklahoma and intern with the Noble Foundation one summer, and they put me on a big ranch in Oklahoma, and I got to be in some big range country and really be on a horse every day, and I just fell in love with it and fell in love with cattle and grass, and grass is a lot more simple to me than equipment is, and so it was pretty easy to want to come this direction. And so we ended up, after college, I ended up coming back to that ranch and working, and started getting a set of cows of my own, getting some lease pasture and things, but realized that everybody at some point wants to do this on their own. Everybody does, and so we're like, how are we going to do that? And we just started slowly building relationships, and I partnered with a guy, put some embryos in his cows, and we just did some different things back and forth. And like I said, was able to buy a potload of cows off of I paid off a stock trailer when we were ranch rodeoing pretty heavy when I was in grad school, and that's the only thing I had in my name. I think I owed on my truck, but I didn't owe on the trailer. And so I had a banker give me a note for a potload of cows off a stock trailer. I don't think you could do that today.
Touched on is the diversity of just your portfolio of what y'all are doing here at the property. So, and one of the conversations that we've had is the wildlife. So would you talk a little bit more about why that's so important, not only to you, but to your operation?
Yeah, so the ranch we're currently at here, this is a property that we lease, and the reason we came here was not just for the cattle, it's for the diversity this property offered from a wildlife standpoint and from a grazing standpoint. And it also brought about a relationship with some landowners that really have conservation first in mind, and they care about the ecosystem and they value the ecosystem. And so it was a good fit for us, because even historically in some of the places that we've operated, as grazing tenants, we generally don't always get value from the landowner, on the wildlife side or the ecosystem side. So it's nice to be partnered with landowners that have ecosystems and wildlife conservation at the forefront of their priorities when it comes to land ownership. And so we're thankful to have that here. We're able to manage in a way that we're able to manage this place the way we really like to manage properties, and that's for diversity. And we ultimately do have to profit on our cattle, and we need the grazing to profit. But what we find is we have more diverse species of forage and forbs. That increases diversity in our soil, which increases the amount of types of plants that our cattle can graze, the soil health in the grass that we normally target for, and then we get the offshoot of that, which is a very healthy wildlife ecosystem. And so thankfully here we also have the hunting rights on this place, and it's kind of neat because we use the wildlife instead of outfitting. We currently we're in a portion of our life where we hope we don't have to outfit because it takes so much time and energy. instead of outfitting, we share the property, we share the hunting with people that are either work with us or part of our team outside of our ownership in our business, with some of the land ownership, some of them, but then also people outside of our industry. We try to we try to use hunting as a tool to connect people back to the land, and it gives us a chance to tell our story, and they see that our cattle operation and the way we graze is actually very good for the environment. It's very good for the ecosystem. When they see, when they go sit in a deer stand, they see 40 or 50 deer in a sit, or they see turkeys on a nest, or they see quail. It gives people a perspective of what, we're not only just grazing cattle out here, we're managing an entire ecosystem, and they see the value in ranching and the ranching industry. And so anytime we can get the hunting on a place, we get it and we use it in a way to not just promote ourselves, but promote the entire industry. And we feel like that's an area that maybe not everybody is taking advantage of that they could. If you don't have to outfit a place, if you don't have to lease it out to make it cash flow, a good thing to do with it is try to build relationships with it and network within your community. And a lot of those people, they want to buy beef from you, or maybe buy honey from you if you've got honeybees. And so, and then you create opportunities too to build a trade up. There's people that we can get to do work for us, and then we can trade them out and let them shoot a deer or something like that. And so, and then they feel like they're part of our team, they're part of our story, and then they go tell the story for us. And that's the best case scenario, when you get people that aren't even part of your daily grazing operation. They're out there telling the story on what you're doing out here, and they've seen it firsthand. That's ultimately what we want, and that's our goal. And I feel like we're able to do that on this property because of the diversity here and the way we're able to manage, and in partnership with the landowners on that.
So when you're talking about the wildlife just in itself, are you doing much on the management of that wildlife? Are you
Yes.
okay, so can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we plant a lot of cool season covers here on this property. Last year we planted about 2,000 acres of cool seasons, and so that alone is pretty much like 2,000 acres of food plot. One of the key things that we do here, we don't use herbicides. Unless we absolutely have to. We have to spot spray or something, but generally we don't use herbicides here because we want to let these forbs have a chance to create food and habitat for the wildlife that are here. We do utilize a mower to help with some of our weed and brush management, but we use that mower in a way that we want to be very aware of the nesting seasons, and we want to use that mower outside of the nesting seasons, and we want to stay away from our pairing areas, and we try to leave buffer strips and buffer zones. And so we constantly, everything we do, every management practice we have, we realize there's trade-offs with some of the things we do with wildlife. And so we try to find practices that are both cattle friendly and wildlife friendly, and a lot of it's about timing, right? And it's not just about completely wiping out a practice. It's about when you use it and how to use it. And so everything we do from that perspective is in managing that wildlife ecosystem as well.
So at the end of the day, no matter if it's wildlife or if it's a cattle side, it has to be run as a business. You got to be able to pay the bills at the end of the day. So what have you been doing to keep the money running through the operation?
Yeah, so that, I think, we're a very diverse operation. We're all of our money comes from our cattle enterprise currently, but we try to be very diverse in there. We do sell bulls, we sell females. We do have, commercial cows too, and calves, and we sell some beef. So I think it's very important, one, to be diverse. Like we talked about earlier, we think depreciation cost is a big negative in a lot of cattle operations, and so we try to avoid depreciation at all costs, and so we generally like the majority of our animals on our property to be appreciating in value and not depreciating in value. We also think it's very important to create a very good market for your cull animals, no matter what that may be, because if you can make money on your cull animals, you'll never lose money in this business. I mean, that's the key. A lot of people want to tell you what they did on their best set of calves or best set of steers or best set of heifers, but your bottom line is made up of your bottom end animals, in my opinion. And so if you can make money on those, you're always going to do good. And so that's one reason we got in the beef business, is because it came natural to us. Like, it created a market for culls, and especially on the, for the females that don't breed back and that kind of thing. And of course, there being a great niche for grass finished beef. But then even right now, there's so much value for cull cows. Even there's a lot of reason to move cows that aren't super efficient. And so I think those have been some of the main keys for us. I think also having key partnerships from a capital standpoint, whether it be the partners we currently have, or then also like Texas Farm Credit, who we work with. I think it's so key to have somebody that understands your business model when you need more capital to go do something. And, like years like this year where we had really good moisture, you want to be able to capitalize on that, right? And if there's short-term opportunities, you need to find those. And so that's something we've done in our business where I think we've done a really good job. We have a kind of a set stocking rate for year round on what we think we can operate. And then when we get bonus rains that produce, additional grass above what we kind of manage for, we look for short-term opportunities in the market. Right now is a little bit tougher because the market's so high, but there are a lot of years we're constantly buying cattle during grass time just because we realize, hey, we're going to have an extra 100 animal units worth of grazing through the summer. And so what can we buy? Maybe just make a little bit of money, $100, $150 a head, but that spreads our overhead costs, and we don't have a lot of input costs in those cattle. And so I think we're constantly looking for the next thing that can make us add a little bit of revenue, and we don't try to like hit home runs, bat singles and constantly kind of move runners around the base, metaphorically speaking, and that keeps us in the game instead of trying to make these big home run swings and getting caught by the market. I think it's real important for us to be diverse, and especially a lot of these, a lot of cow-calf people, you just have cows and sell calves every year. That doesn't create enough revenue for us. And so we constantly think about other ways. And that's, one of the things we talked about earlier was, like this year, we're probably going to keep our heifers back and sell our cows. The cows are worth a lot more than the heifer calves are on the young cows, and we'll make money on that appreciating heifer and sell that cow before she depreciates. Right now in today's cow market, a lot of these cows are worth more today than they'll ever be worth again in their life, possibly. And so, and even if they're going to go higher, like you kind of want to lock in some of that value right on your balance sheet. And so we find that very important. And once you get into that, once you kind of start doing that, it's not too hard. Getting started, that's kind of tough. Selling some of your better end cows, that can be hard. But once you realize the revenue that it creates for you and the cash flow and kind of the sustainability it puts into your operation from a financial standpoint, it's real key for us. So.
Well, and you talk about sometimes making those hard decisions is key, but for those who are getting into this maybe for the first time, that's a lot of hard decisions are being made. It's very daunting. Yeah. So what is some advice you would have for people who are maybe getting into this for the first time, just like you and your family did?
So my biggest piece of advice would be surround yourself with producers that are operating similar to what you want to do. And I say that, look for producers especially that you feel like have profitable business models. They don't necessarily have to do this for a living full time, although that would be, if you can find those people, that's a blessing. But I would say you need to find people that are definitely profitable. There are a lot of people in the cattle business, unfortunately, that aren't truly profitable, especially from a standpoint. If you realize that maybe they don't lease their current operation, that land was inherited or something like that. And so for somebody getting started that may not have that, there's plenty of people out there that started without a capital base, without a land base, and those people are invaluable. In our current operation, we have so many different people that we work with like that, and then we have relationships with that are right there where we're at, that we, even today, like where we feel like we've been sustainable long term for some time now, we have key people that we can contact in these changing markets and these changing weather patterns and ask them about, different things. And we can, anytime we do anything that may be new or different for us, we will bounce that idea off other people that are in similar situations. And that's so important. It gives you confidence in what you're doing. It also makes you aware of things that you don't think about. You got people that are, can kind of play devil's advocate. And then you have relationships, people that are looking out for you and that, hey, if they find leases in your part of the world, like, hey, this might be a good relationship with you. And so I would say number one, before you do anything, before you even buy a cow, build relationships with people that have profitable enterprises. And sometimes that'll be surprising who that is. Some of the operations you might think are truly profitable. It might surprise you that they're not, and some of the operations you don't think are profitable, it might surprise you that they are very profitable. And so I would say seek those out and build those relationships.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
this is a beautiful place that you've got. A lot of obviously improvement that has happened over the last few years, and an incredible set of cattle, an incredible family, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all being out here and letting us tell our story, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it with the rest of the world, and letting them know what we do out here. I think it's so important. It's an area I think that we lack in our industry, people telling our story out there, and so I appreciate you guys fighting that fight for us, because it's very, very valuable to us. So
It's
thank
a
you.
partnership. You gotta get on both ends.
Yeah, definitely.
Michael, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Roasting banks or not? Roasting banks or Mom and I over here.
Yeah, that's okay. Did we run them off? No.
Thanks for joining us on this journey to Southern Red's Ranch, where tradition meets innovation and stewardship runs deep. If this story inspired you, share it with a friend and stay tuned for more ranches making a real impact right here on Ranchworthy. I'm your host, Emma Kaufman, and we'll see you next time.